Dragon Age Veilguard is a successful launch in both terms of sales, breaking the records for the most concurrent players for a Bioware game, and getting many positive reviews. But that isn't why Dragon Age Veilguard is important for Bioware. It being successful financially and critically is important to the continuation of Bioware, but what really matters is the game itself. Throughout the marketing of Veilguard, Bioware has repeated that this is a return to form for them, and in many ways it is. It moved away from the multiplayer online only and microtransaction game it once was, to a single player offline no microtransaction games, as stated in an IGN article about Veilguard's development. It has also had Bioware fully admit, loud and proud, that they are a studio that makes single player RPGs, and tells stories through characters. And that is why Veilguard is so important to Bioware. It's not just that the game did well, it's that Bioware themselves turned away from the impulses of making a multiplayer game and switched to what they have always been good at. To describe why this shift was so impactful, I need to talk about the codebase of Dragon Age the Veilguard that was built on. After Anthem launched, Casey Hudson said that the next Dragon Age game would be built on the codebase for Anthem. Now this is both a good and a bad decision. It is good because it allows for the game to not spend time and money making tools to make the game, because everything was already made. They can now just focus on the game itself. Baldur's Gate 2 was a great game because of this. Its codebase is 90% to just Baldur's Gate 1. It means that they can refine everything from the gameplay, the art style. But it's also a bad decision because of Anthem's core. As I said before, it's a multiplayer, online only, and microtransaction game. Its codebase was built to support a co-op multiplayer environment. That informs a lot of what a game built on its codebase will be. So it shows how much Bioware had to do to make sure the game was gonna be different. They refused to let Veilguard become that kind of game, where its codebase prevented it from being a single-player offline no microtransaction game, and it speaks volume on the direction the company wants to go in. The companions are front and center once again. Anthem had no companions whatsoever, and seeing them return in such a big way is a good thing. One of my favorite moments in Veilguard so far is the first companion quest with Bellara, Echoes of the Past. It's such a sweet and endearing moment. It explains a lot on who Bellara is and why she does what she does. It's a beautiful scene that demonstrates how much effort Bioware put into returning to what they're good at. And the story itself is really well done. It starts off rocky, but as it progresses it gets better and better. The choices to save either Treviso or Minrathos is really the turning point in the game. Do you save Treviso because there will be no one to defend them, and Tiva doesn't have a standing army, so many people will die? Or do you save Minrathos because the Venatori will use this chaos to take over the Empire? It's such a great choice to make because there are good reasons to make either choice. Now, was Veilguard successful in scrubbing all the elements away from Anthem? No. The UI design is clearly taken from Anthem 2.0, the combo system is heavily borrowed from Anthem. Note that the combo system did exist in Mass Effect and Dragon Age Inquisition, but it's clear that Anthem's version of the combo system was the basis of Veilguard's. The way the faction reputation is presented and works is very similar to Anthem. The levels feel like they were to facilitate a bunch of people walking around. Even Act 1 still feels like it has all the early ideas of Veilguard's live services past that was retooled and tried to tell a story. But you can feel the game getting further and further away from those elements as it progresses, where it feels more like a single-player Dragon Age game. So despite some failings, Bioware did succeed in many ways. They made an effort to remove as much as they can and retool the codebase to facilitate a story-driven single-player RPG. Anthem was not a dialogue-heavy game. Compared to its contemporaries, it definitely was, because Destiny had no dialogue options. But when viewed with other Bioware games, it's not that the dialogue is the focus in Anthem. In Veilguard, it is. It adds so much more options for the player, and this all happened because their mindset was shifted back to what they as a studio are good at making a single-player RPG, with an emphasis on telling stories through characters. And that attempt and mindset shift means many good things for the future of Bioware. Notably, Mass Effect 5 will benefit from this shift. I hold the belief that Bioware moving away from Frostbite will hamper progress on Mass Effect because they have to start from scratch, but it does have a huge benefit. It means that Anthem's codebase will no longer influence what Bioware can or can't do. An example of this is the art style of Veilguard. Look at the characters in Anthem and compare them to Veilguard. They have a similarity to them. Veilguard could not look like Inquisition because of Anthem. It restricted how the game could look. The only way to have the game look like Inquisition is if they poured a lot of development time making it look like Inquisition, and Bioware did not have that luxury. Game development oftentimes boils down to could have been and would have been nice twos. So Bioware tried to make the best out of a bad situation. They focused on what the game needed to get right, like its companions and stories. So Mass Effect being on Unreal Engine 5 is a good thing in this way, because it means Bioware is unburdened from Anthem. No longer will systems that were made for the purpose of multiplayer have to be retooled for a single-player game. No longer will the art style of Anthem influence the game. Now it can just be what it wants to be, instead of being confined to the limitations of what came before. And this means that after Mass Effect 5 is finished, whatever comes next, whether it be Dragon Age, a game, or something new, it'll benefit from this change in this direction. Because it won't have to be on the foundations of a multiplayer game. It can be one to build stories. Stories through characters, and telling stories use the mechanics of an RPG. This is why Dragon Age Veilguard is important. It indicates a shift towards a game built to tell stories, and as I mentioned before, stories through characters and telling stories using the mechanics of an RPG. It'll benefit Bioware in the long run, because starting from scratch with Unreal Engine 5 will free them from the live service codebase of Anthem, and the residual influence it had on Veilguard. So, I am hopeful. Veilguard definitely has a lot of things that could have been better, but it definitely is such a demonstration that we could have had a Dragon Age game that was just a live service multiplayer game. You can imagine the Lighthouse being a hub where you can see other players, or you can lock them off because that's your hub area, and when you go out into the crossroads you can see everyone else just running around. But they didn't do that. They changed it, and I think that is what makes me hopeful for the direction of Bioware. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm a bit busy just, playing Dragon Age Veilguard to make a lot of videos anymore, but I will start trying to make more videos as time goes on. Veilguard, currently I'm enjoying quite a lot, and yeah, there's not really much else to say, but it is such a Bioware game in many ways. In many ways there are things that could have been better, but it is, in its end, a Bioware game. And if you liked the video, perhaps consider, liking it, maybe even subscribing, and comment down below on if you think what I said was true enough, or do you think that, actually Veilguard isn't important at all and it's actually a bad game or whatever. Leave your thoughts down below.